We've just finished our ground diagram, and I don't know that I love the way this looks. I'm happy with the shapes, but I don't like the color. There's a couple ways to change color. You can either come over here and double click on this, kind of start to pick any color in here. Also, if you know the name of the color that you want, for instance, if I want this to be like sort of a dark gray, and I know that I like this color, I can go there and type it right in and hit enter, and it just changes it for me. Another way to do this is to come over here. And if you ever have trouble with just black and white, so sometimes this will get set to like a grayscale, all you have to do is come over here and click on this little paint palette right here up in the corner. And if you're not seeing this menu, it's potentially because you're not in, a setting that is familiar to you. You can, however you want to set this up is up to you, but I tend to work in Essentials Classic because it puts a lot of the tools that I need right at my fingertips. Oftentimes, if you just open Illustrator, it just comes as this Essentials palette, but I like Essentials Classic. It puts more stuff that I use right at my fingertips. If you're ever stuck and you can't figure out where the toolbar is, my suggestion is to come up here and kind of, start to look at like what are these different settings? How do they change your workspace, and that kind of thing. And you'll get more used to this as you go. This symbol for paragraph. This is, the glyphs, which is great for like if you need dollar signs or like stacked fractions or anything like that. This is your artboards, and we'll get into more of that later, but your layers are in here, gradient, line weight, and then of course your color and things like that. But you'll get more used to it as you play around. So if you ever get into a situation where you're just only able to pick a color in grayscale, come up here, make sure that you're in an RGB or a CMYK because that'll make your life a lot easier. And you can see, so I've got my selection tool enabled, but if I come over here, it just comes up with my little eyedropper and I can change the color as I see fit. I'm not actually in here, but I can play around with colors as I want to. So I like the gray color that I was in. I do want this to be a little bit lighter because I want to start seeing the contours through the buildings. I'm going to turn those contours on. You can see how much busier that just got. And I'm going to do like a 44%. I like to use a I like to use a unique opacity because there's this select same opacity feature, and that allows you like if you want things to like appear to be similar colors, but you want to be able to select them quickly if they're not in a group, that really allows you to like if you go up and you say like, okay, I want this 44%, select everything with 44%. It's just a really easy way to make that work. So I've got my buildings kind of where I want them. I'm gonna lock those. I want my contours to get cleaned up just a little bit. So I'm gonna click on them and then I'm gonna go to right click and I'm going to hit simplify. And that's going to come up with this tool right here. Oops, stuck up there. So this is the simplify filter, and I'm going to click on this little gear right here because that's going to allow me more control. And it's going to come up with some additional options here. You can see there's a minimum and maximum number of like points. So this is the minimum number of points, the maximum number, and you can kind of drag that around, to give you an idea. So if I drag it up, yep, you can see like the original is 8,200. Now I'm at 7,700. If I drag it down, it's going to change the shape a little bit. You can see the shapes changing over here. And I've just knocked off like an extra 15 to 2,000 points on those line segments. The other thing that you can play around with is the smooth versus sharp. So if I smooth these out, they get a little bit less bumpy, but I also run the risk of like crossing the lines. So you can kind of see that in here, that the lines might cross. We don't want the lines to cross too much because that poses an issue for our digital model when we bring it in later. The other options that you have are right now, these are all curves. If I click convert to straight lines, you see how much that distorted the geometry here. I don't want that, maybe something if it was like an orthogonal shape, I would maybe want to do that. But for this, it's landscape. We want it to kind of still be kind of smooth and curvy. So I'm pretty happy with that. I've reduced the lines by quite a bit, and I'm just going to hit OK. I also want this to appear a little bit lighter. So I'm going to go up here and I'm going to make this 0.15 and hit enter. Now, right now it's just a stroke. That's great for what I need. I want it to be a little bit lighter green, so I'm gonna just play around with the color a little bit. I'm gonna hit OK. Now I'm gonna click off of it. Now you can see it's like pretty light. The other thing I want to do while I'm in here is in landscape architecture and urban design, we have the option for cut and fill. It's something that happens a lot on site. Right now, I'm just gonna turn off these layers. So you can start to see that there's a lot of topography right in here and right in here. And we kind of want that to be flat. Like in reality, there's a parking lot that's going there. And so that's not going to have a huge divot right in the middle or a huge hill right in the middle. So I can pretty safely figure that those are going to be cut and fill, like if this is a hill, maybe some of this dirt goes in to fill out this divot. So I'm just going to click and drag around that one. And you see I got most of it. I'm going to hit delete and I'm going to click and drag around it and hit delete and delete. And that way I'm starting to like flatten out this site. You don't want to do it too casually in the real world where, you start to talk about um, cut and fill getting very pricey. Um, and you don't want to be transporting a lot of dirt, but if it's starting to equal out, square footage or volume of soil on site, that's really typical that you would do some cut and fill on site just to even it out. You don't want too much topography unless you're actually working with the topography. So I'm just clicking and dragging around these kind of holes in the site where I see opportunity for flattening, anything that's kind of like isolated into a series that doesn't um start to be like a huge coastal line. So like, some of these areas that expand like across multiple sites, you wouldn't want to mess with those because those are kind of like dominant features in the landscape. But some of these that are just kind of like contained within the site, you can just assume that those might become things that are cut and fill.